Today's video is sponsored by Sakura and Tokyo Treat. More on them later. Hey there yo! I figured I'd get one more random facts video out before ending the year off. I still don't see too much of a difference between this format and the wiki format, but people seem to miss this, so I won't neglect it. So let's just start off with a familiar face everyone knows by now, Examinee623, who's given me a fun little fact regarding Kaclang and the Ice Climbers. You know how normally Kaclang makes hero immune to all wind boxes, be it those from attacks, those from items, or even from stage hazards? Well, apparently the wind box that's in the center of the Ice Climber's final smash is an exception. You can see it push hero around no problem. And because of this, if the stage is small enough, you'll be able to shove them right off, effectively making this a successful counter. I mean, my first thought when seeing this would be that this is more of a solid object, like a wall or something, rather than a wind box. Something more akin to Executor, which also pushes hero while he's in Kaclang. Meaning, yeah, even this can technically KO hero here, which is really funny. But anyways, no, the Iceberg doesn't have some physical wall-like hitbox or anything. It actually is coded as a windbox. And you can see this section right here, the big circle within the cone. Thank you ZekFox for providing the visuals. This is especially interesting to know when you also consider that Jigglypuff's final smash, which feels like it should be a similar type of windbox, fails to do anything to hero while he's in Kaclang. So it seems that on top of Executor, I guess, the Ice Climber's final smash is one of the few things that can actually counter hero while he's in Kaclang. Especially when you look at how the move negates other final smashes. This is pretty impressive, I think. Next, Sword Gecko made a tweet showing off a funny interaction with Young Link's bombs. It's not really a huge thing, but basically if you throw a bomb up while directly next to an Incineroar that's facing the other way, the bomb will explode without dealing any damage. And we can tell that this is due to the specific placement of Incineroar's hurtbox, because once he does an idle animation this stops happening. I don't know, this is just a really funny, niche interaction. Some people in my Discord call this Din's Fire, which is pretty funny. Oh yeah, speaking of my Discord and Zelda, Skully found an odd mechanic with Zelda's down special that I frankly have never heard of till now. Normally when fully charging Zelda's down special, you have two possible options. One is to complete the charge, which delays the Phantom's attack. This frees up your inputs, but means the Phantom attack comes out slower, which is easier to dodge. And two is to manually have the Phantom attack right after it's built. But when you're doing this, you lose control for a little while, meaning you can't really do any cool combos. However, there seems to be a very specific period where, if you input an attack right, you'll do that attack while simultaneously the Phantom will do its manual input dash. Basically, you're cancelling the normal lag that would come from inputting the manual Phantom attack. I think what's happening here is that you're inputting something on the last frame that you're able to input the manual Phantom attack, so the game just inputs both for whatever reason. Which is confirmed if we go into the frame-by-frame settings. Starting on frame 68, if you try to input anything, you'll input it, but the Phantom will be put into its slower automatic attack form. If you input something on frame 66, you'll just do the manual attack. And on frame 67 is where we get the cancel, where you input the manual attack as well as whatever you inputted. Meaning this is the final frame for the manual input, so I think you can understand the logic here. In this testing, just about anything seemed to properly cancel the manual attack, meaning you can use special attacks or smash attacks, and you can even use grab. However, jumping didn't work for this, so if you want to cancel into an aerial, you'll have to already be in the air for that to work. And I think that's probably insanely impractical, but just so you know. So yes, this is a frame perfect input, frame 67 of the charge. Oh, and you want to make sure that you don't charge the entire way, since if you keep the down special input pressed even at frame 66, and then input something on frame 67, nothing will happen. So always leave at least one frame of no input before going into the move that you can use to cancel it. Now, I don't know if this is actually a common thing for Zelda players to do or know about, or if this is hidden knowledge. Or if this will have any practical use at all. I'm not a Zelda player, I don't really know. I mean, maybe it could be a good mix-up. You know, a good frame-perfect mix-up. Well, practicality aside, I think it's really interesting to know that that's a thing that can happen. And before we move on to the topic in the title, I'd like to thank today's video sponsor, Sakura and Tokyo Treat. Sakura and Tokyo Treat are a Japanese snack box service that ships authentic, Japanese goods right to your door. They've worked with me for quite a while now, and my experience has definitely confirmed the quality of their products. With Sakura, you'll get 20 traditional and authentic artisan Japanese snack items, which includes a set of Japanese teas, and one special Japanese tableware. This month comes with a cute little wrapping cloth called furoshiki, which can be used for wrapping holiday gifts. And don't worry, the box comes with instructions too. The theme for this month is Tochigi Tradition, where Sakurako has partnered with Tochigi Prefecture's local Japanese snack makers, with Tochigi being a prefecture that's famous for gorgeous mountains, waterfalls, and lovely scenery. It has over 600 onsens, or hot springs, so it's a very popular place to keep warm during winter. So for that theming, the box will come with some local delicacies from Tochigi, like this lemon yokan, or this strawberry tiramisu biscuit. And with Tokyo Treat, you'll get up to 20 of the most exclusive, seasonal flavored Japanese snacks, which are only available for a limited time within Japan. This will usually include something like a drink, or even some instant noodles, which is always a really nice treat. The theme for this month is Santa's Snack Fest, which is very simply a Christmas theme, and they have a limited edition holiday theme for the box this month. With this box, you can experience what Christmas is like in Japan, with things like winter caramel poke, Tongari Christmas corn chips, or even these milk tea flavored Kit Kats, which tasted really nice. I really like how much the milky flavor comes through in these. It did not take long for me to eat this entire package. Of course, there's no worry about not being able to read any of the packages or anything, since each box comes with its own personalized booklet. These will go over the box's theme, the culture behind said theme, information about how some of the contents are made, and very importantly, information about each individual item, like a name, description, and even information about potential allergens, or if it's vegetarian friendly. I've always really appreciated this feature as it makes the experience a lot more accessible. So if you want either a Sakurako box or a Tokyo Treat box, or both, be sure to click the link down in the description and use my code PKBEATS in all caps for $5 off your first box. And they're even doing a giveaway where you can get a free ticket to Japan. So be sure to check it out, doing so by December 15th if you want the themes gone over in today's video, and thank you Sakurako and Tokyo Treat for sponsoring me today. Alright, moving along. Examine63 had shown me a very interesting setup in Stage Builder that lets you reach the actual item limit, credit apparently going out to Nintendo Unity. Normally in a setting like training mode, you're limited to spawning 8 items. Once you reach this count, you cannot spawn anything else until at least one of those items goes away, but you're still fully free to use the items in your own toolkits. So it's clear that this item limit is leaning heavily on the safe side, and isn't very close to the actual limit of the game, obviously. And in a real match, while you'd normally see around like 3 to 4 items at once, by carrying some and using some crates and containers, you can definitely surpass 10 items on the screen at once. Yet still nothing really breaks. So the question that's on everyone's mind for everything is, can we get much higher, so high, and maybe even reach the actual item limit? That's what this stage can help us test. For visualization purposes, I've turned on the grid mode and you can sort of copy the layout. I don't think it needs to be very specific. I think the most important part is that there are springs over the ground at this level, and the wind is at full speed and at a 90-degree angle, placed no higher than the springs, and there's just some kind of wall. And the main character for this is Sheik. The setup after this point is incredibly simple. Just go into one of these springs, face towards the wall, and start spamming side special. You'll notice that your grenade gets carried over, and since you get interrupted by the spring, it gets cancelled. But for some reason, it won't despawn like usual, and instead just stay afloat from the wind. You can probably already tell how this is going to work then. Yeah, if you just keep doing this, the grenades will pile up, and eventually you'll just stop throwing grenades. That's how you know you've reached the limit. If you time it improperly and go a little bit high in the spring jump, the grenade will not get stuck here and just disappear as normal. So make sure you keep this in mind and actually get as many grenades as possible properly stuck. And if you're wondering, after keeping track, the number of grenades I believe I got to was 64. Exactly 64 grenades. Since these should be the only items on this stage, that means the technical item limit of this game is 64. I don't know a lot about coding and whatnot, but 64 is that type of number that makes me think there's a specific reason why it is that, since it's divisible by 8 and is one of those important numbers, you know, but I'm not going to get too into that much. So for the trivia perspective, saying the item limit is 64 is probably a fun takeaway, but I'm sure now you're wondering, what happens when you're at the item limit? Well, as you could tell with how Sheik no longer throws her grenade, it means moves that normally produce items no longer work. So yeah, Link can no longer produce a bomb. He'll start out the animation just fine, but nothing appears. And he doesn't get glitched out and act like there's a bomb there when there isn't. The game just keeps functioning as normal, just with no bomb. This also includes the arrow that normally gets stuck into the ground, it just doesn't stay. Projectiles do still work, assuming they aren't items that can be picked up. So the boomerang or Sheik's needles are just fine. Just to run through more examples, Snake's C4 is not an item, so that works fine, but his grenades are. So he'll play the animation where he takes a pin out, but there's nothing to throw, meaning you can stay in this animation for as long as you want. Rob's gyro can be charged just fine, but will disappear when released. Here are some more unique tests. For some reason, when you charge Pac-Man's bonus fruits, the sound effects will just be completely off, and the fruits won't be there at all. I guess what this tells us is that the animation of charging the fruit isn't purely visual, but that the fruits are always considered an item. Which actually just makes full sense when you consider that you can cancel the fruit animation by hitting it, like it's a physical object that you can actually hit, and thus whatever was charged at that point gets dropped. Also, this one's really funny, but while King K. Rool's crown throw will work as normal, if it lands at all, and thus becomes an item, it'll disappear entirely, meaning K. Rool can no longer get his crown back, and is perpetually bald. Speaking of perpetuality, I left the game running with the 64 grenades for quite a while, because I was wondering if they would eventually despawn or something. After 10 minutes, nothing changed, and I kept it going even longer off camera and they still stuck around, so practically speaking, it'll last as long as you need it to last. Of course, there are ways to make it stop lasting, like you could simply pick up one of the grenades and toss it away, which will remove it from the item cap. Or since the grenades are still technically active, the opponent can just get hit by them, which also gets rid of them. I guess not all of them will hit, and some will lose their hitbox despite not hitting you. And also I have no idea exactly how many are here right now, but it's much lower than the limit, which is what matters. Or you could just reset the mode. So far I think this is all very interesting, but in terms of glitches it is pretty simple, though the effects of not being able to use items does drastically change how characters function. But still, I was hoping for something a little bit bigger, like maybe a game crash. Oh yeah, no, if you use Wario's bike and then get off of it, normally that turns it into an item anyone can pick up. But if you're at the item limit... Hey, that's what we'd like to see. It's more fun to see a game crash when you're doing really crazy testing when compared to just playing it. I mean, okay, this is a soft lock, but I did experience crashes. You just can't use the Switch recording system when that happens. Anyways, up to this point, I was mostly using tests and examples that other people had talked about, but I still had some questions I wanted to go over. For one, if you go into a match with all items on high and do this setup, it'll still work just fine. Eventually, it'll get to a point where all items are despawned, and only grenades are filling the cap. And when this happens, as you can probably imagine, 0 items will spawn. Nothing too crazy, but I just wanted to make sure. Also, I was curious, what if you had pocketed an item, then did the setup, and tried to use the item that was pocketed? I sort of messed up the counting here, so I wasn't sure if I reached 64 grenades tossed, but regardless, when I tried to have Isabelle then unpocket the grenade from the start... You should have heard my reaction when this happened. I don't know what's so fascinating about crashing a game through calculated exploitation, but it's really funny. Now, I didn't actually reach 64. As when I tried again, I only counted up to 63, so the item in Isabelle's pocket is counted toward the item cap. Another easy way to test this is just having Isabelle get KO'd, and the item in her pocket gets removed. And when this happens, Sheik is able to use her grenade again. So it's less like the pocketed item ignores the cap, and therefore when you use it you get 65 items and breaks the game, and more so that it just breaks the game. Even though this is within the cap, it still crashes. And funny enough, it'll also crash if you simply pocket one of the grenades down here, rather than unpocketing anything. Actually, in retrospect, I think this crash had something to do with the pocket being cancelled by the spring or something, since when I tried to pocket a grenade while not bouncing, grabbing the item worked just fine. So I don't know, maybe pocketing at the item limit while also getting cancelled by the spring created its own unique form of game destruction. And yeah, if you couldn't tell, the amount of springs I was using beforehand was definitely overkill. You only need one that's a decent distance from the wall. Also, I'm adding this onto the script because I'm only just now thinking of it. But earlier we saw that Pac-Man's bonus fruits are considered an active item while they're charging. But what happens after it's charged? If I fully charge to a key, then do the setup, what happens? And this time the result is pretty underwhelming, but all that happens is when Pac-Man releases the key, nothing will appear. So it's not stored or anything, and nothing crazy happens. Now I did do a few other small tests, but I didn't notice anything big, and I can't think of anything else to try, so I'm gonna leave the rest up to y'all. If you discover any huge, weird interactions, just leave it in the comments as usual. And frankly, I think I'm gonna end the video there. I mean, beforehand I had a few other things I wanted to talk about since I really didn't go over too many separate facts or entries in this video, but I don't know, this whole item limit thing was just really interesting and took up more time than I was expecting. What that does mean is I have plenty of leftover material for another random facts video very soon. So that'll definitely happen sometime in the future, so you can look forward to that. Oh, this is the outro portion, by the way, so it's rambling time. Earlier I made a little jab at Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, which I know is not an original thought by this point, but, you know, it's still very worth saying. But despite that, I'm actually really enjoying the game. It's hard for me to tell if I like it more or less than Legends Arceus. I definitely think there are a lot of elements of Legends Arceus that I prefer way more to this, but I don't know, there's also a lot of elements here that weren't in Legends Arceus that I really like. Regardless, I'm having fun, even at 15 FPS. Like, please, by all means, criticize the game in any way, really. I think that little subset of Pokemon fans who, like, get extremely angry at any type of criticism is just kinda weird. Like, it's not like people are complaining that you can't shoot a watermelon in the background or whatever. You know, these are pretty reasonable complaints that I usually see. Like, you can still enjoy a game and accept criticisms for it, you know. But, I mean, I don't know, I guess you can do whatever you need to do. I'm not really going to go more into the game itself though, and I'm definitely not going to spend a whole month working on a review. Not again. So I guess leave your comments down below on what you think of these new games. And also what you thought of this video and the awesome glitch and the stuff before that. I just like comments that are nice and cool. Alright, yeah, that's all I have to say. Oh, and also another thanks to today's sponsor Sakura and Tokyo Treat. Their continued support and amazing products have really gotten me through this year, so I really appreciate them. And with that, I'd like to thank my patrons Raighne, Skully, Savon700, Burbo, SickanDaDank, and everyone else for their support. Stay casual, and I'll see y'all later.